Coronation presents Firebreaker, The Legend of George and the Dragon. Chapter 10, The Cleansing of Silene.
Wow.
Wow, indeed, my boy. Huh? What's this? No more questions?
No, Grandfather. I've learned that you never answer my questions right away. But somehow, they always get answered in the story.
Ah.
On second thought,
Yes?
now that Kakos is dead, it feels like things should be wrapping up pretty soon.
Well, you may be right. As George stared incredulously at Kakos' huge, limp body, Aya took a clean bandage from Michael's saddlebag and wrapped it around George's arm.
I underestimated you, Cappadocian. That was very impressive. I must admit, I didn't think you had it in you.
What? I wouldn't have been able to do anything without you, or Theodore, or Demetrius, or Michael, of course. But you deserve most of the credit. Really.
Whatever you say, George, the Dragon Slayer.
So, now what?
Aya finished bandaging George's arm, stood up, and looked back to the gates of Silene.
I think it's time to go home.
At the gates of the city, the group of cultists that Michael had barreled through were beginning to recover.
Get up! Get up!
Through the splintered gate, Plisto looked out far across the lake.
We have to move quickly before...
Plisto felt a change in the air. Something had happened. In the distance, he could just make out Kakos lying still.
No, my Kakos.
Plisto ran forward, but his cultists held him back.
No, Plisto. The time to mourn our dear Kakos is not now. Remember that all is not lost. Yes. You are right. Come, let us retreat. We have work to do.
Elsewhere, the news of Kakos' death was received with much more joy.
Huzzah! Huzzah! And thanks be to God!
Hurrah for George and for all Silene!
Zoe, gather workmen. Bring the dragon into the town square. And the rest of you, go and spread the good news throughout Silene.
Sir, are you sure that...
Let it be done.
Yes, my king.
Zoe and the workmen arrived at the lake.
Look!
Zoe!
Aya, thank goodness you're all right.
Zoe looked down at the corpse of Kakos.
You?
What word from the king?
We are to bring the dragon's body into the city square.
Wait, into the city?
Yes.
What's the matter, George?
To bring that creature, that evil, into the city among the people. It seems reckless to me.
George,
Dangerous.
so many of our people have fallen under the dragon's sway. I think it will do them good to see the corpse up close.
If they need to see it, let them see it here. I don't know. I can't explain it, but I feel uneasy.
It's the king's orders, George. Besides, you'd have to talk to them.
Already, the people of Silene were flooding out through the gates and towards the lake. George, Aya, and the resistance led the horses through the city. A great team of oxen and over 100 villagers pulled the huge dragon behind them.
Don't worry, George.
The town's musicians came out to play. Silenian flags were flown. Confetti was thrown. As they arrived at the town square with the dragon, George could see the king and Demetrius surrounded by an enormous crowd of Silenians.
Behold, the beast vanquished! My friends, We have many to thank for this glorious day. Let us thank all of you for your prayers and your resistance. And Princess Aya for standing up to the dreadful dragon so bravely. And young Demetrius for finding our warrior and leading him here.
Really, it was nothing.
And finally, come forward, my son.
George approached the king and knelt before him.
Your Majesty, may we speak in private? This is not a good...
Yes, not now. Gentle people of Silene, it is my great joy to introduce to you...
The crowd began to part for Plisto and a large group of cultists. They were all armed, and 5 of them were riding wolf-sized dragons.
Your doom is upon you! Doom upon Silene, doom upon the king, doom especially upon this Cappadocian!
Plisto, more insolence?
Plisto dismounted and walked towards George.
With the support of the king, this foreigner has committed sacrilege of the highest order. He has dared to take up arms against our great god, Kakos, the Beneficent.
Nonsense! Your great god is nothing more than a flying lizard, and a dead one at that.
He's right. You have no power here now, Plisto. Kakos is dead.
Is that so? Foolish girl, do you really think that another wouldn't rise up and take his place? One of his offspring, perhaps.
Plisto rubbed the head of his dragon steed affectionately.
And when all is made right again, there will be peace. Peace, as we have had.
He's right. Remember, things were peaceful until that Cappadocian appeared.
The old man whom Plisto's goons had knocked down stepped forward.
Peace? Is it really peace if we don't trust one another? If we live in fear?
He stopped in between Plisto and George.
Plisto, you must stop deceiving yourself. Dragons are evil, and this dragon has terrorized our people for years.
Kakos has been nothing but our provident benefactor.
Look at the scales on your hands. How long before this plague takes your very life?
No.
Plisto, remember your people. You are still Silenian. Come back to us.
The old man reached out his hand to Plisto.
Take my hand.
Plisto slowly put out his hand.
Yes, that's it.
Until Plisto produced claws from his fingers and slashed the old man's throat.
No!
George leapt forward towards Plisto, spinning Ascalon and blocking Plisto's claws. They traded blows, but just as George was about to apprehend him, he saw the old man. Plisto's claws had cut him deep. He was faltering. George ran to him and caught the man before he fell. Plisto laughed and mounted his dragon steed.
Rain forth fire, my children!
As the dragons blasted at the nearby buildings, the cultists on the ground drew their weapons and started attacking the crowd.
Silenians, with me!
George lifted Ascalon up high. He and the resistance members rushed out into the square to engage with the cultists. On the steps of the palace, King Cosmo drew his sword, and Aya pulled an arrow from her quiver. Suddenly, a dragon-riding cultist flew into them, knocking them both down.
My arm!
Doom! Your doom is here!
George took out a few of the cultists, then looked up to the sky. Plisto and his dragon were headed right towards Aya and Cosmo.
Aya!
George gestured at Plisto. Aya looked up in pain, her one arm broken. With the other, she handed her bow to the king.
You taught me everything.
The king grasped the bow, knocked 2 arrows, and swung it toward Plisto and the dragon. With all his strength, he pulled back the string. Cosmo's aim was true. The first arrow went through the dragon's throat, and the second into Plisto's chest. The fall of their leader deflated the spirit of the cultists. As soon as the fighting ceased, George returned to the old man.
George?
He's dead.
As is Plisto.
The king stepped forward.
Enough of this bloodshed!
The spirit of the crowd began to change. Suddenly, Plisto was no more. The dragon was no more. Hope and peace filled the air. It was as if the sun had finally emerged from behind ages of fog. Their king was once again leading them.
Plisto's reign is ended!
Have mercy on us, Your Majesty.
To all of you who have oppressed our people, even now we offer you a choice. If you renounce Kakos and repent of your dragon worship, you will receive pardon. If not, then you must leave Silene forever.
Immediately, the 4 dragon riders flew away, and a few of the cultists on the ground fled. The rest of them stepped forward.
We renounce Kakos, and we repent of our ways.
Be at peace, my children.
The cultists removed their masks to reveal their faces, scaly and diseased, sorrowful yet peaceful.
There's work that must be done to make our kingdom whole again. But first, we must tend to the wounded and bury the dead.
As George covered the body of the old man with his cloak and picked him up in his arms, the people walked solemnly out to the cemetery. In the stillness of the empty square, one of the dragon's eyes slowly opened. The great Kakos was still alive.
Next time on Firebreaker.
Back in Silene, the first course of action was to bury those killed in Plisto's attack.
My people, let this site forever stand as a memorial to those who gave their lives that we might be free again.
You have been listening to Firebreaker, the legend of George and the Dragon. Firebreaker is a Coronation Media production, starring David Henrie and Elizabeth Tabish, directed by Jim Morlino, written by Jim Morlino and Dominic Morlino, original score by Kevin Kasker, with sound design by Michael Moen, executive producer Bill Phillips, executive producer and showrunner Gary Gores. For a full cast and crew listing, please visit our website firebreakerseries.com.